Hello and most welcome to 1789 of the Heidegger series. We will today continue the reading of 1787 of The New Jerusalem, Wealth, Ancient Building Projects, and Revelation 21 to 22. Last time we looked into how important things becoming corporal is for them to be real. They need a doing behind, an action. From that point stems reality itself in the activity. Without a doing, it will not be real. And we also mention the intermingling of inside and outside in the Dominus Aurea, and how the magnificent palace needed more than golden jewelry. The gardens and the outside literally entered into the garden like a Klein bottle. And by bringing the inside to the outside, a miraculous beauty was arranged. Lucullus, who visited the place, called the emperor Lucullus, called him Xerxes in a toga. Huber the Stoic called Lucullus Xerxes in a toga. This goes to show what big changes become when we let the inside enter. Even rivers, parts of the mighty sea, lakes, ponds, forests, were inside in the interior of Domus Aurea. It's a good example. He built up plains to the level of mountain peaks and raised mountains flat with the plain and built moats out into the deep and stormy sea. And we can continue on the second paragraph on 361. Three, the rereading in the New Jerusalem. In the first place, and arguably in contrast with Jewish visions of the heavenly or eschatological temple, the decor and architecture of the New Jerusalem is wealthy, but not luxurious beyond imagining. Elaborate gardens were a feature of many Roman villas. The introduction of seemingly impossible streams, lakes, and natural water features into the gardens of elite dwellings alters our perspective of the Edenic quality of the New Jerusalem's central square. No longer is the garden in the city the kind of extraordinary paradox that we find in Enoch's description of the snow and fire-filled structures. Now it is an elevated version of real-life example. The non-Christian wealthy, a primary target of the author's criticism, regularly attempted to combine the urban and the rural in astonishing ways that were intended to dazzle and display power. Many of the showier elements of architectural displays of status and ingenuity were intended, as already discussed, to subvert nature. The construction of Nero's central dining hall was such that it revolved like the heavens. To be sure, this was an astonishing feat of engineering, but it was also one that set in its sight the elevated nature of dwelling in the heavens. Though, I think we can take one small paragraph at a time when they are of that small size. Though they pale alongside the presence of God that constantly illuminates the New Jerusalem, the Golden House and Roman architecture more broadly have these kinds of lofty ambitions in the competition for status. The New Jerusalem clearly surpasses even imperial structures. As Stephen Friesen has cautioned, the similarities between Roman architecture and the New Jerusalem should not lead us to conclude that there is a fundamental similarity between the two. Most scholars of Revelation view the book as a response to imperial domination, power, and persecution. Though some have dated the book to as early as 68 to 70 Common Era, the majority of scholars would place it slightly later. Likely during the reign of the Emperor Domitian. For our purposes, it is the orientation of the book vis-à-vis Rome, rather than the precise year of its composition that is of importance. Upon this orientation, there's a broad agreement that this author of Revelation and the community to which it is addressed is at a minimum hostile towards and critical of Roman authorities and power. Recent scholarship following the development of the field of post-colonial studies has characterized the book as a kind of resistance literature. To some readers, the luxury of heavenly space may seem surprising. After all, throughout the book, the author has consoled his addressees for their poverty and criticized the wealthy, especially those engaged in commercial business. Babylon is arrayed in purple, adorned with gold and precious jewels. Those who engage in business with her have grown rich from the power of her luxury, and her enormous wealth will be laid waste in a single hour. As Robert Royalty has put it, the insatiable appetite of Babylon from wealth and luxury portrayed in Revelation 18 is a symptom of complete depravity. Babylon's eventual destruction has been read by many as a critique of Roman wealth. In his work on wealth in Revelation, Royalty has argued that the moral difference between Babylon and the New Jerusalem is that heavenly wealth is permanent and incorruptible, whereas earthly gold and possessions are corruptible and perishable. To be sure, the wealth of the New Jerusalem never receives the criticism the author levies against Rome. Additionally, the comparative incorruptibility and corruptibility of heavenly and earthly riches is a theme in Second Temple Jewish literature that promotes almsgiving. The difference between the wealth of Rome and the wealth of the New Jerusalem, however, are more pronounced than mere durability. Even as the city resembles the luxurious palaces and villas of the super elite, its economic and political structure is more egalitarian than those of the aristocracy. In Roman imperial society, access to citrus was restricted only to the wealthy. By contrast, in Revelation's New Jerusalem, everyone who enters the city is able to partake in healing. Those faithful previously excluded from power now have access to the city, a city that houses the presence of God. With this new economy of faithfulness, the poor become rich by remaining loyal to the land and inheriting the gold and jewel-laden New Jerusalem. Contextualizing the New Jerusalem in terms of the architecture of the Roman world not only draws attention to the wealth of the scene, it domesticates it. The New Jerusalem of Revelation not only resembles Babylon, it literally contains the decorative and architectural features of the Roman imperial world. Divine illuminating light aside, the structure is at home in a world in which ambitious social climbers attempted to accomplish feats of engineering to compete with the peers. Unlike the villas and homes of emperors and aristocrats, the New Jerusalem is not open to the critique that it breaches the laws of nature or cosmological order, because the city itself descended from the heavens and is inhabited by the divine being that created cosmic order. Chapter 4 concerns about the wealth of the New Jerusalem. For the later readers of Revelation, the reconceptualization of wealth as pure in the New Jerusalem in some ways proved ineffective, even if the wealth of the New Jerusalem is incorruptible. The city still contains the potential to misinform and provoke envy, just as the house of Cyrena's neighbor elicited distress in Seneca's correspondent. What made luxuria ethically problematic was not its existence, but the manner in which it might corrupt the individual and lead them to acquisitiveness and envy. Luxury and wealth even appropriate displays of wealth have the power to corrupt others, have the potential to corrupt others, and set a bad example writing round the turn of the 3rd century. Clement of Alexandria took issue with a rather materialistic vision of heaven described in Revelation 21. In rejecting the materialism of the scene, he argued that the golden gems of Revelation 21, 18 to 21 were mere metaphors. By the incomparable brilliance of gems is understood the holy brilliance of the substance of the Spirit. Only the foolish and ignorant Christian exegete would read these passages as a literal description of heaven. Clement's statement inaugurates a trend even among some of the more literal millenarian commentators on Revelation, in which the heavenly city is understood as a cipher for the church and her virtues. Similar objections were voiced by Clemens Ecclesiastes. Similar objections were voiced by Clemens ecclesiastical descendant. Dionysius of Alexandria, in writing against Nepos' deeply materialistic millennial views, Dionysius produced his now famous arguments against the Johannine authorship of Revelation. Less frequently noted are his arguments that millennialists lead people to hope for things that are trivial and corruptible, and that the book cannot be understood in the bold literal sense. He adds the opinions of others that revelation be attributed to Cerinthus, a man devoted to the pleasures of the body, the belly, and what comes beneath the belly. Though it is rarely noted in scholarship on the canonization and the reception of the apocalypse, Revelation's potential support for hedonism is one reason for Dionysus' rejection of the literalist interpretations of it. Conclusion. In the past, where comparisons between the New Jerusalem and Rome have been made, they have been performed on literary grounds. The presumably symbolic description of the New Jerusalem matches the symbolic personification of Rome as Babylon in Revelation 17 to 18. They are drawn together, it is argued, through literary analogy. To this argument, we might add that the wealth of the New Jerusalem is less peculiar and opaque than it may seem. The decadence of Babylon and the New Jerusalem has grounding in ancient elite architectural and decorative programs in which rural space and urban space were mixed. Jewels adorned everyday objects, and the laws of nature, please wait there, were playfully and now strategically transgressed. In this context, the New Jerusalem supersedes and replaces Roman building projects because its architect is more competent and accomplished. God is capable of lighting the city in perpetuity, and the trees in Revelation City are more abundant and effective than those that grow in the courtyards of Pompeii. At the same time, the similarities between the aesthetics of elite Roman architecture and the description of the heavenly Jerusalem highlight a tension in Revelation and Christian eschatological hopes more broadly. The condemnation of luxuria stands in contrast to the descriptions of heaven and expectations of future indulgence. The very world condemned by Revelation, Roman moralists and numerous Christian authors, is the world that Christians also hope to inhabit. And thereby we end the reading of The New Jerusalem by Moss and Feldman. I will now have a look-see at some quotes. Let's sum up the article. In general, I would say it clearly points, despite the author's intent, to the physicality or the activity of the New Jerusalem and how things like eternity, heavenly bliss are deeply connected to material wealth. It's from there the force is coming. You can enter the Domus Aurea and you get the feel of the enormous wealth there. This is what makes it possible to go further, to go into the lust, the longing for the heavenly Jerusalem, which is permanent, forever, non-perishable. See here if we go to page 363. Perfect, that's the page. To the very bottom of that page, last paragraph. Even as the city resembles the luxurious palaces and villas of the super elite, its economic and political structure is more egalitarian than those of the aristocracy. In Roman society, access to citrus was restricted only to the wealthy. In contrast, in Revelation's New Jerusalem, everyone who enters the city is able to partake in healing. So I'd say the New Jerusalem has even greater wealth because it includes everyone. Remember how inclusion, bringing in the luxurious gardens, make the luxury of the Domus Aurea even greater. The same is here. Letting the paupers come in and enjoy make the luxury even greater. Inside makes the outside a couple. Invited by the inside, it becomes richer, I would say, complementary. The worst thing you can do, the Platonic Church, is ridding the inside of jewels and golds in a naivistic attempt to say, if we take away the earthly gold, we can only have the gold in the heaven. That is not in the history of Christianity. It is not how Christianity is being practiced ever. The luxury is even greater in the New Jerusalem. Why? It is not perishable. It is even more inclusive. The pauper is invited, the crippled, the widow, even sinners. And to understand that and to have that, Rome is an absolute necessity. Ridding that of the church, that of our doings, rids also the New Jerusalem of its glory. Already the Platonistic tendencies can be seen further down. But let me just read here a bit down here on this page, the last sentence. Unlike the villas and homes of emperors and aristocrats, the New Jerusalem is not open to the critique that it breaches the laws of nature or cosmological order, because the city itself descended from the heavens and is inhabited by the divine being that created cosmic order. To be even more to the point, it ascended from earth and at the same time descended from heavens. It starts at earth. The wealth on earth is what makes their heavenly wealth possible. The doing, the action, an almost dangerous term, I would use here now, materialization. I'm not a reductionist, but you get my drift. The last paragraph on this page beginning with writing. Writing around the turn of the 3rd century, Clement of Alexandria took issue with a rather materialistic vision of heaven described in Revelation 21. And here we have a difficult term already. It's not materialism that is attacking or pointing out, it's spirituality. It's God himself. God is not absent on earth. It's not absent in our dwellings. We do not live in a Newtonian world where the Lord has simply abandoned us and the earth, and we do not live, or heaven is not a transcendental Tegmarkian or Hugh Everettian, after the American physicist Hugh Everett. No, it's real because it involves doings. So it's not materialism, I would say, and we can safely say that with the background of former lectures, because materialism and spirituality go hand in hand. And that also what it makes it possible to discern in between them. And what has happened after, following the advice of Clement of Alexandria, the church has become wholly material. God is now in existence with the truth values, truth or false, non-existent or existent. You get how this is happening. And later on, we can read how this influenced. On the same page, the last sentence there. I will not make it too long. Sorry. Clement's statements inaugurates a trend even among some of the more literal millenarian commentators on Revelation, in which the heavenly city is understood symbolically as a cipher for the church and her virtue. So symbolically, and Clement want to have it metaphorically, just like the present archbishops of Sweden. It's only metaphors, and a sort of dead metaphors. It's the metaphor of Hugh Everett, because it doesn't have substance. This is a change into the Platonic view. On the next page, we have similar objections were voiced by Clement's I should start again there, as I did last time. Similar objections were voiced by Clement's ecclesiastical descendant Dionysius of Alexandria. So it starts already here, the contamination, if you want, or undermining, I would call it. The lack of understanding of the world, the Klein bottle, and the later rejection of spirituality. Slow process, not as all as fast as might be seen here. No, as we can read in the conclusion, the wealth of the New Jerusalem is less peculiar and opaque than it may seem. It is not a Greek argument between the goodness of the Jerusalem and the evilness of Rome/Babylon. That is a Greek thinking, Greek religion. No, it was healthy. It didn't see those sharp contrasts. And we see here how it might have gone exactly where you have the marker color. Revelation's potential support for hedonism is one reason for Dionysus' rejection of the literalist interpretations of it. Today, I think someone calculated 99.9% of all miracles in the Bible and all sort of references to heaven and celestial and spiritual are seen as only metaphorical, even by the clergy. There it's pure materialism that it ended in. And that is very interesting to note, but is also incredibly interesting to see how heaven builds up this way. How the rich gardens of Rome makes heaven possible, both of the same material, but one is better than the other. The heavenly Jerusalem is better. Something that, of course, these millenarians wouldn't be able to agree on, because the very words that they utter is not placed in reality. So they wouldn't even be able to celebrate heaven. Kalle Lundahl, please come in.
Let's go to page 12 in PDF. It's page 362. Let me mention this footnote 50. So this book by Moss, one of the two authors of the article, is famous in the studies of the New Testament. So it's called The Myth of Persecution.
Indeed, yes. I see.
So she argues that she goes against the Christian view of persecution. She argues that the victims were very few or considerably less than Christian authors claim. So this book by Candida Moss is relatively famous. This is Candida Moss herself. And then this paper is also important by Shaw, The Myth of Neronian Persecution, that rides on the same wave from 2015, Myth of the Neronian Persecution. And let me now go to page 365. And this that you already mentioned. Dionysus, in writing against Nepos' deeply materialistic millennial views, Dionysus produced his now famous argument against the Johannine authorship of revelation. Less frequently noted are his arguments that millennialists led people to hope for things that are trivial and corruptible, and that the book cannot be understood in the bold literal sense. He adds the opinions of authors that
Lovely.
Revelation Pietro to Cerinthus, a man devoted to the pleasures of the body, the belly, and what comes beneath the belly. And this Dionysius of Alexandria is an important figure. He was Patriarch of Alexandria. So he was a famous, important Christian leader. So we should take his views seriously. Even this great figure, Dionysius of Alexandria, had these strange views, so to say. That it was written by this Cerinthus, a man devoted to the pleasure of the body, the belly, and what comes beneath the belly. And this makes me think about the Quran. So Christian apologists usually attack Quran, stating that Quran is materialistic because Muhammad promises material pleasures in heaven, like if you are warrior, you can get virgins, etc., etc. So basically, is in Revelation, okay, there is a huge difference probably between sex and materialism, at least in Christian thinking, but we have to be careful. I'm not here defending Quran. We have to be careful that we know what we are speaking about, that we take in consideration the book of Revelation. Materialism is not bad.
No.
But in Christian thinking, sex is bad, so to say, outside of proper boundaries, so to say. And so it's so Dionysus' interpretation is fascinating. So Dionysus equated revelation with the belly.
Yeah. Let me just make a proposition here. It's just a suggestion, not needed to be taken serious. But in the same way that in this series we rejected in physics, we more or less rejected the idea of a transcendental multiple world, like take Markian view or the Hugh Everett view. And We've been more in the region of Lee Smolin, Carlo Rovelli, and Julian Barber for that sake, that they don't make a great difference between what is abstract and what is material, and that they are more like the Klein bottle, where, as in the Max Tegmark, it's it's an enormous difference between what is abstract and what is material. And the reason for many people rejecting transcendental worlds, which you can never have any contact with, is that they don't seem to have any substance to them. You can prove anything, you can't enter into them. They seem to lack everything, and thereby you reject them, as I've done. If you put that to these new theologians that says that heaven is not real, it's more like a transcendental place, I imagine that theology that more and more took that turn in the 19th century, they encourage atheism quite extensively. Maybe they were even the proselytizing atheism, because a transcendental, non-real, non-material, and sharp distinctions between what is material and what is spiritual, it's so easy to reject. So it's just a thought, but let me mention this as a support. The hymn, the psalm, 3 in 1, 1 in 3, which was honestly written, was used as a contra evidence as Christianity already in the early 20th century, late 19th century. So it's eroding, undermining tendency. Sorry, Kalle, it was just my...
No, perhaps Dionysius of Alexandria is an example why the Coptic Church is not part of the Catholic Roman Church. It's not part of the that this proves that the Coptics are strange.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'm just chancing. Here's a single man, and he didn't have that influence on the Egyptian church later on, maybe. But it's very interesting.
No, I apologize to the Coptics.
But it's interesting that he turns up. He has clearly Platonic views. Yeah, it's pretty long. What do you say, Kalle?
Yes, let's end there, and with the thought of Dionysius of Alexandria and the belly and the Cerinthius, let us live in this merry mood.
Yes, let's do that. Good idea, Kalle. A man devoted to the pleasures of the body, the belly, and what comes beneath the belly. Very well put. I say thank you very much, I thank you everyone for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Bye bye for now.